there's just a lot of things that are very vague.
Yeah, there's certain name drops and stuff that you're just kind of you're confused at, at first glance. But I think that's kind of the point too.
Yeah, it's beyond all that. It's kind of fairly simple plot.
Yeah.
I mean, watching it again, I've seen it many, many times, and many times even recently. Beyond the 2 times that I watched it in the last 2 days in prep for the show, but to me, it's kind of like The Road Warrior, which is not a whole lot of plot and just kind of like 2 hours of action, and that's how I kind of feel about Ronin.
Yeah, it's got a lot. I don't know that Robert De Niro has done anything quite like this, where he's so handling firearms and doing all this stuff. Like, is there anything that you can remember that he's done that's similar to this?
I mean,
not where he's actually doing it, you know what I mean? Maybe he's been in films that are similar, but not where his character is so like hands-on, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's similar, but I mean, the big one that always comes out is Heat.
Yeah, there we go.
Obviously, but yeah, like, he doesn't do a lot of action movies. I mean, Midnight Run is kind of an action movie, but I think of it more as a comedy.
Have you ever, and I'm sure you have, you've had to see this, but what do you think about The Fan?
The Fan is okay. It's a lesser Tony Scott film, in my opinion. But it's not awful. I remember when it came out, it got like pretty beat up by the critics. I think that might have been one of the movies he did just before this. I don't know. I'd have to look at the IMDb, but he did Heat. He did The Fan. He's in Jackie Brown. But that's not like a big role, and that's definitely not an action role. And then he's in this. So he had a pretty decent stretch for about four years or so.
What about Meet the Parents? 2000?
I'm not a fan of Meet the Parents.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. The first one is okay. The sequels are atrocious. I can see where people would like it. I can see where, they would consider that like a good comedic role for him. But I've never been the biggest fan of Meet the Parents. I think the 2 movies that he's in around this time that are pretty solid are The Score.
Oh, yeah. With the
Frank Oz film with Edward Norton and Marlon Brando. And I mean, Analyze This is great. The sequel, Analyze That, is not. So I say skip that one. But Analyze This is really good. That's a comedy movie, obviously. And have you ever seen 15 Minutes? 15
Minutes. Doesn't sound familiar.
It's him and Ed Burns. They're cops.
I don't think so.
It's okay, but I think that De Niro is good in it. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of the movie, but I think that De Niro is good in the film. But after that, I mean, The Score and 15 Minutes are both 2001. Meet the Parents, like you mentioned, is 2000. And Analyze This is, I believe, 99. Yeah, because I think that was out about the same time The Matrix was out. After those movies, I looked at the IMDb like when we were prepping for the show, and man, he's got a lot of stinkers through a big stretch. I think he was becoming more of a paycheck guy.
I can't even think of, besides Hide and Seek, what did he have like through the 2000s? Oh
man, well, he did the Rocky and Bullwinkle, which I think is...
He's in that? I didn't even know that.
He's the Fearless Leader. That's a bad movie. There's Hide and Seek. There's Godsend, which is very bad. There's Righteous Kill, which we've shit on before.
Yeah.
Showtime, which is a bad movie with Eddie Murphy. I can't think of a lot off the top of my head right now. I'd have to look at the IMDb to see, but I don't think he's all that good for a stretch of maybe 10, 12 years until he starts working with David O. Russell. I think it's probably not until Silver Linings Playbook when he's actually in a good movie with a good role.
Again, yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
I mean, even his, it's just a cameo in American Hustle, but even his cameo in American Hustle is better than anything in the previous 12 years. Oh, City by the Sea, which is a movie I really disliked with James Franco.
City by the Sea, I don't think I saw that one either.
It's like, I think he's a cop. I think Franco's his son that like kills a mobster or something. Franco's overacting the shit out of that movie. He's really bad in it. Analyze That, like I said, is not great. The Meet the Parents sequels are awful. The Good Shepherd, which he directed, is a pretty good movie. He's in that, but just a small role. So I wouldn't necessarily call that a De Niro always starring movie.
He directed that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good movie.
You know what he's really good in? The Bronx Tale, dude.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's a great one.
For sure. And I mean, he's good again when he hooks back up with Scorsese in The Irishman.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we know he has it in him because The Irishman is a recent film, so he can still be good. It's just he needs the right kind of direction, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I know that you brought it up with me before, The Family.
Yes. Yeah, I keep bringing that up, and then you're just like...
But he's good in that, right?
Yeah.
Or would you say that he's good in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, until he hooks up with David O. Russell, and does the cameo in American Hustle, but does Silver Linings Playbook and does Joy, like both of which he's really good in. Excuse me, but that period between, say, analyze this and The Score and Meet the Parents is not great. So you were mentioning just before we started to record, you were mentioning that you hadn't seen this film more than maybe twice, and even then it was years ago.
Yep.
So what were your impressions of watching this film just recently?
I think it holds up quite well because of the. It feels very grounded. You know what I mean? They're not doing anything, and even the action and stuff. It's not. At least to me, it wasn't. It wasn't obnoxiously done. I kind of bought into it. It has the whole kind of Reservoir Dogs scheme going on, but obviously you see a lot more action going on, once you get into the thick of things. But, yeah, I think, I specifically love the 90s era, in film. So it's always fun for me, a treat for me to go back, and especially with something that I kind of forgot about, I guess, which would be something like this. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, you're right about the action. I mean, you mentioned it in the intro. Like, it's all done practically.
Yes.
All the car chases. Like, that's not any kind of green screen. It's all done practically. The action is grounded and realistic. Something that I noticed on these two rewatches that I just did are kind of like Michael Mann did with Heat, is the gunfire is really loud.
Oh yeah, the gunfights are gnarly.
Yeah, it's not movie gunfire. It sounds like real gunfire. But even that, I mean, there's good action, but it's there's people getting shot and killed. So it's not like the A-Team where we fire
and nobody's
a shit ton of rounds and no one gets hurt.
No, yeah, a lot of bystanders, and they show it. And they keep...
Yeah, like the poor bystanders in this film, like there's a couple of scenes where they really get it.
Yeah. Well, they'll just like blow up this guy while he's in his car, like innocently just trying to drive down the freeway, and he just gets plowed into a fucking center divider, and then he's just, evaporated.
Yeah.
Who else is really good? Jean Reno is really good in this as well.
Jean Reno is great in this movie. He had a really solid run in the 90s of being in great action movies because he does The Professional, which is because he was Luc Besson's guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's another just kind of a I don't want to say bare bones, but there's not a lot to that movie, but it's a great action film.
Yeah, him and Gary Oldman. Oh man.
Yeah, it's not overly complicated at all. But he's great in that. He's really good in the first Mission Impossible film.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ronin. He's really, it's got a solid cast. I mean, he's really good in it. Natasha McElhone is great in it, as is Stellan Skarsgård. Jonathan Pryce is really good as the kind of the ultimate bad guy.
Sean Bean, who just gets kind of like, they're like, oh yeah, you're not good enough, and they just kick him out.
Oh god, we gotta talk about Sean Bean. Because he's great in the movie, and he's not in that much of it, but he's so good. We'll get into that in a moment. I want to talk about Frankenheimer first, but yeah, they're all really good in the film. Even the guy who's probably the lesser known in the cast, Skip Sudeth, who plays Larry, the driver.
Mm-hmm.
is really good in his role. So let's talk about Frankenheimer, because Frankenheimer has an interesting career. Does a lot of shitty movies for a long time,
mm-hmm.
and then kind of has a really, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say diverse. Has a really interesting 90s, which is where he made his comeback, but he made his comeback in different ways. So, right off the bat, Frankenheimer directs two classic Cold War thrillers. The first is The Manchurian Candidate, which is awesome, which I highly recommend to anyone. The Frank Sinatra original, and I know I will always go to bat for the Denzel Washington one too, because I think that is very underrated, the remake.
Mm-hmm.
But Frankenheimer directs the original Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra and Lawrence Harvey, Angela Lansbury. It's a perfect espionage thriller. And the movie he follows it up with, which I believe I had you recommend on the show for me when Kirk Douglas died, is 7 Days in May.
Uh-huh.
Which is another excellent Cold War thriller. That's about Kirk Douglas is an army colonel who uncovers a coup plot to overthrow the president, and that's a fantastic film that I just watched again sometime last year during the original lockdown. I remember watching it. So those two are fantastic movies. That's kind of what he's known for a long time. And then I'm looking through his